Hi guys, how's it going? Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to try a different approach to these videos moving forward. I'm going to use the screen capture feature on the iPad in tandem with this video, so it doesn't quite seem as though I'm just providing a voiceover for as you saw in the previous videos I've been uploading. All right, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to look at 4 different images and we're going to practice applying adjectives to those images. And I encourage you to do this as a native English speaker working to develop their language skills, or as a an ESL student, so English second language, or perhaps this is your third language, and you're trying to learn about not only what adjectives are, but also how to apply them in your day-to-day. It really does help to just start with the basics. Looking at an image, maybe watching a movie, and then just jotting down any words you can describe the images that you're seeing. And then later, as more advanced practice, using the words that you've generated in a list and creating sentences based around those words, or applying them to other things that you see in your house or around you. Just really, really good practice. So we're going to go ahead and try this now. Let's take a look, which should be superimposed somewhere on your screen, at my 2 amazing kitty cats. You've got Blue right here, and you've got his brother, who's filthy, Mr. Chunks. Now, I do take better care of my cats than what you're seeing. Mr. Chunks has this habit of sleeping in a hole in my backyard, which he created. Rather than sleeping on the nice green lawn or in one of the nice green bushes, he chooses to sleep in a hole, because that's who he is. And he won't change for anyone. All right, so let us take a look. And, before we do, I should also remind you, an adjective. What is an adjective? An adjective simply is a word which is used to modify a noun, right? It describes a noun, essentially. And what is a noun? A noun is a person, place, or thing. Very, very simple. So we've got we've got multiple things. We've got a couple things looking in this image. We've got 2 cats. We've got a pillow. We've got a sofa. We've got a blanket. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. All right. How can we describe a little bit about what we're seeing? Well, okay, instead of saying there are 2 cats on a sofa, which you absolutely could, and it would be grammatically correct, and no one would fault you, we want to liven it up a bit. So let's go ahead and start describing a little bit about what we see. I'll switch to orange. We've got my sofa, which I'm not really proud of, with very tacky pillows. And tacky, for those unfamiliar, is a word, it's a pejorative. It's a word which is negative that describes someone's taste, right? Or your level of taste. And I don't mean taste like you're eating it and you can taste it on your tongue. What I mean is taste more towards what you consider fashionable or what you consider visually appealing. So you could say it's tacky, or its inverse, you could say it's fashionable. The 2 are not the same, they are opposites, right? So this would be your negative, this would be your positive, but I digress. We've got a very soft looking blanket. We've got a very dark looking cat. He's got, I would say, dark brown, caramel, almost. His tail is pretty fluffy, right? His face, it's probably hard for you to see, but, you know, let me just draw it in. He's not sad, but he's definitely, he's tired looking, right? So he's tired. Or you can say he's fatigued, which is a fancy way of saying tired. His brother has a very sleepy looking expression, right? He looks very comfortable. He looks very relaxed. I'll just write that in there. He's relaxed. His paws are curled. If I were to describe the texture of the sofa, if I could zoom in, that's probably as close as I'm going to get it. It is, if I were to take my finger and kind of scale it or run it down the length of the sofa, I would describe it as gritty, right, or rough. It's not the softest couch. In fact, it's a very cheap couch, which is evident in the picture. Anywho, enough about the sofa. Okay, so and there's more words you can add. In fact, if you have some additional adjectives based on this picture and the others that we see throughout this video, I encourage you to leave them in the comments below, right? Practice building your own list. Whether you're doing it physically on paper, or if you want to use the comment section, that's totally fine, and I encourage it really heavily. All right, let's move on. One of my favorite characters from one of my favorite shows, believe seasons 1 through 7 before, I mean, the series is still going on. It really should end. But anyway, we've got Homer Simpson. Okay, how can we describe Homer in this image? Well, he's got very wild looking eyes, right? He looks wild. He looks crazed. The background is very dark. It's very messy. It's a little bit chaotic. Let's see, he's got his mouth open very wide. It is wide or gaping. Sometimes people will refer to it as gaping, like, you know, maybe you have a cut that's very big. You fell or you were stabbed, God forbid, and it's very large. You would say it's a gaping wound. His body type, you'll notice that he's very girthy, which means wide, or portly. If you want to be very polite, even though it's not a nice thing to hear, if someone refers to you as portly, or you're describing someone as portly, or something as portly, you're describing it as very broad, very, very big. Not necessarily fat, but just broad. Usually it means fat, but not always. His skin tone is very yellow. Let's see. And he looks to be very loud, just based on what I'm seeing. I mean, it's a still image, but you know, there's a lot you can garner from that. All right, let's go ahead and move on a little bit. Oops, looks like I've already decorated this one with some notes, which I forgot to take off. All right, so we've got one of my favorite characters, Blanche Devereaux, from one of my favorite shows, The Golden Girls. And she's saying a very relatable quote, which is written right below, where it says, "I guess it's the curse of being a devastatingly beautiful woman," which is, I'm sure, something you all can relate to. All right, and if you're not familiar with her, I really encourage you to check out The Golden Girls, especially if you want to build your English vocabulary. They've got a lot of really fun little quibs and a lot of fun words that they like to spit at each other, these ladies in the show. Very, very funny, very, very entertaining way to learn English. And this applies also to native English speakers too. It's a part of your American culture. You need to watch this show. Not that watching TV is good, but you know, this show is. Anywho, I digress. All right, what can we describe about this picture that we are seeing of Miss Blanche Devereaux? We can, well, just looking at her mirror, right? It is golden in colors, but by the way, describe nouns. So colors by their nature are going to be adjectives. Same thing with numbers, like the quantity of something is going to be an adjective by default. So we have golden, or you could say it's yellow. It's really subjective. It's also very shiny, right? It reflects a lot of light. It looks as though she's sitting in front of some kind of vanity or a table. And I would describe it as a little bit messy. It looks disorderly, right? Things just look like they're disorderly. Yep, I spelled it correctly. It just looks like things are just kind of randomly set throughout or on top of the table. Doesn't seem to be any particular pattern. Let's see, she's got a very delicate looking hand, you know, very feminine. So she's got a very delicate hand. Her outfit is very non-restrictive, so I would say it's very flowy, right? When something is flowy, it means it's the opposite of tight. It doesn't restrict you. It allows you to move easily, you know, much in the same way that when you wear pajamas to bed, they tend to be very flowy. It tends to be very easy to wear, so you can move around. Let's see. Oh, her hair. We could even just look at her amazing hair. It's short. It looks to be a little bit curly, so we've got that texture. And it is brown. So again, the color, which by default will be an adjective. Excuse me. And it looks like she's sitting in, I'm going to assume it's wood. It would be like a hard/wooden chair. And again, there's a whole host of other words you can generate based on this image. These are just the ones that we're kind of quickly, or I'm quickly just kind of coming up with. And as a reminder, this is just a really nice way to practice, whether in this format or if you're watching a YouTube video or browsing the internet, looking at an image, just pause it, write down some words to describe what you're seeing. It's good practice. And in fact, if you're not, let's say you end up using the same word to describe an image, like you're looking at multiple images and you find yourself saying the same thing, right? It's large, fat, short. It's going to get pretty boring, and very quickly you're going to realize, oof, maybe I should diversify my words a little bit. That's when you would know to consult a thesaurus, right? So you can go in, find that word which you feel like you are overusing, and you can see that you're overusing when you create the same word, or you generate the same word in multiple lists. And that's a chance for you to go in and dig for words that can replace the word that you are being pretty repetitive in using. All right, just my tip. Oops, I still have this decorated with some previous notes. Sorry about that. Oh, this is a fun little image. So in my gym, just out the window, this was about 2 days ago, I took a peek and I noticed that all of a sudden there was just this herd, literally a herd of turkeys just running from the development across the street, right past the gym into the tennis courts, which are not far from the gym. So I just thought it was a fun picture, and this is one that we can use to just kind of throw some adjectives into, okay? All right, so I have a very large looking bird, right? He's large, I'll say it again, he's girthy. He also looks very strong, very muscular, right? Turkeys tend to be very lean. He's got, oops, let me put that back, all right. If I'm looking at his legs, he's got very narrow or very fine, very thin legs. He's got pointed toes, right? He's surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 smaller friends. So 5 being the quantity of turkeys in this case, so that's an adjective. Smaller, I'm using it in the comparative, but they're small, right? So smaller relative to the larger bird. If we're looking at the parking lot, so the space in the picture, whoops, gosh, I keep erasing it. So if we're looking at the parking lot, I could say that it is largely empty or vacant. However, there is this single car, single white, oops, come on. Single white car, so color, number, right, single, and then color being white. If you look at I'm not quite sure how much detail can be pulled from that image, but the parking lot is a little bit aged. So it's worn, it's weathered, it's rough. It's not in disrepair. That would mean that it's in such a state that it essentially requires repair. Like it needs someone to go in and just either rebuild it or repave it or resurface it, which is the case here, but not quite to that extent. Instead, we're going to use lighter terms to describe the condition of the parking lot, like aged, worn, weathered, rough. They're all synonyms for one another, and they're communicating to the person listening that it is that's not quite as new. It has definitely been used, and it's showing its age. And these are words that you're going to want to be mindful of too, because not all adjectives behave the same way. Some are a little bit more extreme than others. You kind of have to play around with them and become more familiar with them to kind of get an understanding of how to use some and when to use others. So anywho, I'm going to go ahead and scroll back up. Just as a reminder, adjectives are words which are going to be used to describe a noun. A noun is a person, place, or thing. Adjectives, if I haven't already mentioned this, I'm forgetting, are essential for communication, whether written or spoken. As a person communicating, your audience is whoever's listening. And you are, in essence, a director of sorts. Telling a story, you're writing a movie, you're sharing that story. You want to use as many details as you can to convey the most clear image of what it is you're trying to say, or share, or remind, or whatever the case. You really want to use these words to entice your audience or whoever's listening to you and to keep them engaged and to really paint, I mean, I'm being redundant, but a clear picture of what you're trying to say. So I encourage you to use adjectives sparingly, in the sense that you don't want to just throw adjectives, multiple adjectives for every noun in a sentence. You want to be sparing and selective, but you want to be smart and pointed about which adjectives you use, because it'll help to elevate your communication style. Unlike mine, where I tend to just rant, and I really should write a script for these things. It's a little bit too freeform, but anywho. All right, so if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel. If you were to give a like to this video, leave a comment if you would like as well, providing any suggestions, tips, or critiques. I do respond to them, and I do read all of them. It's all valuable information for me. Apart from that, I hope you guys have a great day, and I appreciate you being here.